So now let's launch Gamesalad for the very first time and see what we're presented with. So most of these tutorials, whether you're working on a Mac or a PC, will be very similar, but just keep in mind there might be some keyboard preferences that are different between the Mac version and the PC version. I myself am currently working on a Mac, and you might be using a PC to run Gamesalad, but all of the rules and expressions and behaviors that we're going to be talking about are generally cross-platformable. So locate Gamesalad on your system and double-click on it to launch it. And when you do, you're presented with this welcome screen. Now, I don't want you to worry about anything else inside this welcome screen right now. There's a lot of games that people are working on, and it's a really cool thing to explore in the future. But all that we care about right now in this welcome screen is this blank document icon here under Create New Document. So if I double-click on this blank document, it's going to launch a blank document. I'm going to size that up so it fills my screen. Now let's start talking about everything that we see here, step by step. The very first thing we notice is that we're in our project info. This is just general information about our project, like for instance the name, the icon that you might give a project, something called resolution independence, which we'll talk about later when it has to do with iPhone resolution sizes, whether you're using old iPhones like the original iPhone or if you're using a 4 or 4S that has the new Retina display. But we won't get too much into that now. But this is where you're going to choose essentially what type of game you're going to work on. Am I working on an iPhone game that's set up in landscape, an iPhone game that's kind of vertical, set up in portrait? Do I want to work on an iPad game, a Nook, Kindle? And depending on whether you're a PC or Mac, you might have some different options in this area here. For most of these tutorials, I'm just going to keep it set to a iPad landscape because it gives me a lot of real estate to work with when I'm teaching you how to use Gamesalad. So for right now, I'll switch it to iPad Portrait and I'll click OK. That's really all that you need to worry about in this entire area, is whether you are working on an iPhone or an iPad. Let's go to iPad Landscape. Or whether you're working with resolution independence. But for now, because we don't know what this really does, and we haven't learned it yet, do not check resolution independence. This will kind of increase file sizes in the games that you build. So for right now, just click iPad Landscape. If we click on the Scenes tab, these are all the different scenes that we're going to be creating in Gamesalad. Now, some of the things I am talking about right now might not make a lot of sense, but they'll be all very clear to you down the road. And the way that you can look at Gamesalad is a lot like a theater production. And a theater production has a stage, and it has actors, and there's different scenes in a play. So maybe this scene would be our first scene, so I can double click on it and give it a name. So I'll just call that first. And then I can click this plus icon down here at the bottom to create another scene. So this scene might be our second scene. Another way of looking at this is if we're creating a video game, we can call this first scene the welcome screen, or in many cases a menu screen that we're all familiar with. And then the second scene can be level 1. And if we create a few more scenes here, this could be level 2. And then you might even create scenes like something like Game Over, which might house all of your Game Over graphics. So you can see that even though we're not really jumping into the game development end of things yet, we're just creating all these different workspaces that we're going to have things in. So our main menu, our level 1 or level 2, and then maybe a Game Over screen. If we click on the Actors tab, these are going to be all the different actors that are in our play. And tables we're not really going to review because this is a little bit more of an advanced feature. But just know that this is our project info. This is where we create all of our scenes, and this is where we can take a look at all of the different actors that we're using in our production. So we'll go back to project info. Now let's take a look at the main menu bar here. You notice that there's a back and forth button, and this looks a lot like maybe your web browser. And that works exactly the same way. As we're navigating through the different workspaces inside Gamesalad, we can actually push these back and forward arrows to go back one step to a different workspace or forward one step to a different workspace. And I'd also like to point out that we're currently in the home screen. So if I were to click this home icon, nothing's going to happen because that's exactly where I am right now. If I were to click this scene icon, you'll notice that we'll be able to select between the different scenes that we just created. So for instance, if I were to just simply click menu screen, we get into our main workspace here inside Gamesalad. And in a few videos in a bit, we're going to start really getting into all of the stage and the inspector and the library and all the things we can work with. But for right now, let's just click on the home screen again so we can go back to the home area. So you can see we can switch to different scenes, or we can go back to home screen to maybe change our platform and the things that we work on. Again, we're not going to be reviewing tables for right now. Preview, we'll go ahead and preview our game. It'll essentially hit play on the game and we'll start running the game and seeing how it works. Now, if I were to press preview now, all I'm going to see is a blank screen in this current scene. You can see the scenes that we set up here below. And we can actually double click on each one of these to hop between the different scenes in case we set up actors and images and graphics and artwork that we want to work with. But right now we just see kind of a blank iPad size screen. So again, remember that back arrow, we can push that and that takes us back to where we were before. So that's what preview does, and right now again it's not very exciting, but it will go ahead and become very clear what we use this for once we start creating actors and giving them a little bit of life. Web preview allows you to preview your game on the web or with a web browser. We're not going to be creating any web games. We're going to again focus pretty much on iPad or iPhone for right now for the sake of these tutorials, but that's what that button does. Publishing allows you to publish your games. So after you've taken the time to really build a beautiful and exciting game, you're going to want to publish that somewhere. And as you've noticed, we have a lot of different options. We can publish a game and publish it to the App Store so that it's for the iPhone, the iPad. We can publish games for Nook devices, Kindle devices, and even the Mac and the PC as well. So that's what the publish does. Feedback will give you an option to give feedback back to the Gamesalad team, so in case you have any problems or comments, you can do so. And of course, help will give you access to help menus. So that's just a pretty rough view of exactly what you see when you first launch Gamesalad, and we're going to jump right in with a bunch of other tutorials. The last thing to look at is right down here on the right hand side, as you see the project size. Right now we don't really have anything in our project, so it's only at 2 kilobytes. As you start to build your games, you're going to want to pay attention to this so your games don't get too large and too heavy for people to download or too heavy for the processors to work with. So take a moment to just kind of look at all these items, familiarize yourself, but again, this will all become much clearer as we move forward and you watch the next coming videos.